Now it's time for Culture Talk, where we discuss culturally relevant topics that you can use to start conversations about your faith. And I am joined today with George Haraksin. George, thank you so much for joining us.
Always fun to be here.
You know, we've got this Easter episode that we're going to be talking about, what is Easter about? It's about the resurrection. So we're going to be talking about the resurrection. And, I like to always provide like a skeptic's perspective and some questions that they might be asking. So when we think about the resurrection, a skeptic might wonder, why did Jesus show up so meekly? If he is the Son of God, why would he show up so meekly and allow himself to be crucified?
Well, that's a good question, not just for skeptics, but I think a Christian reading the text will encounter that as well. And especially post-resurrection, Jesus shows up in the ordinary places, right? He's in the garden. He does breakfast by the beach. He doesn't immediately overwhelm people. And that, in one way, shouldn't surprise us. How did Jesus come to earth? Well, he was born in a manger. Yes, there's some fanfare there, but it seems like after the resurrection, he wants to take some time. He knows how much to disclose and how little. So in one way, you could say that Jesus hides so we can see, and we see this on the road to Emmaus, where he does a very long, might have been a very long Bible study with the people on the road there who were downcast and dispirited, weren't understanding what was happening. So Jesus knows how to approach people so he doesn't overwhelm them, yet at the same time, we do find other instances, like when he shows up to Paul in Acts, where it's much more bolder.
Right. So then the reasoning behind that is that, like, maybe he, like you said, he's hiding so that we can see, so that we've got to do some investigating, maybe.
Yeah, we're learning to ask the right questions. I think Jesus is wanting people to own their belief, their understanding, their commitment to him. Even if you look back into the Old Testament, you look back into Genesis, what does God do after Adam and Eve sin? Well, he doesn't go in and scold them like a parent right away. He goes in and he asks a question. And it's amazing that God will sort of stoop down to ask us questions, to get us to think, to probe, so that we come to understand something if we are willing to.
Well, that's a really good point. And I like that, just that example that you give of the Garden of Eden. And that is probably a more effective way to kind of ask people questions in the midst of their...
I do it as a parent.
Yes, it's true. Well, I really like the example that you gave in the Garden of Eden and just really showing the effectiveness of kind of asking the question.
Yeah, we do it as parents.
Right.
I mean, in the appropriate context.
Yes. So when we think about the resurrection today, like how is it relevant for us today?
Yeah, I think it's relevant in a couple ways, not just for the Christian, but for the skeptic, as you pointed out. I remember one atheist saying that she said, honestly, as an atheist, if there is no God, then there's no life after death, arguably, then there is no ultimate hope and there is no ultimate justice. Things don't get resolved. They sort of end in the grave. And I appreciated her honesty when it came to that. For the Christian who has an understanding and can lean on the historical veracity of the resurrection, number one, there's resurrection hope, right? There's hope that justice will still be served even after death. There's hope for meeting other family members, for life to continue, for the good that we like here to continue on, and for the evil to be stamped out. So there's resurrection and hope, but that leads to a resurrection, what I would say, a comfort or peace. When I remember Gary Habermas talking about losing his wife. He's one of the most foremost experts on the historicity of the resurrection. And when he lost his wife to stomach cancer, and I think he had like 4 kids too that he had to watch go through that, he just said it was heart-wrenching. But he could truly lean on the reality of the resurrection and the hope that it brings, which then brought him peace and comfort, even in the midst of all of the pain that he was feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we can lean on. There's a hope there, there's a peace there, there's a comfort. It doesn't solve everything right in this instance, but it can bring comfort, pain, and strength for us to continue.
Right. Well, I've heard you talk about now the hope and the comfort, but I've also heard you mention that there's power in the resurrection. So can you explain that?
Yeah, I would put it, in one sense, I kind of put it this way. There's sort of this historical power that we lean on something that really happened that has effects for us today. And you might say, well, what effects does it have today? We just talked about that in the moment. We have a hope and a future to look forward to. But also, Jesus promised in the midst of that, after his resurrection, that he would give us power, and that power comes through the Holy Spirit, or the advocate, as it says in John, Gospel of John. And I think this is what distinguishes Christianity from other religions. I was a world religions major in college. Lots of religions or philosophies can tell you what to do, give you some instruction on where to do it, but does it give you power to do it? And part of Christ's claim is that he's alive and he can partner with God the Holy Spirit to actually help us become good people. So we lean on a historical set of circumstances that gives us power. There is the personal presence of God that gives us power. And I think it gives us evangelistic power in that would our life be, I like to ask this question, would our life or would your life be better off if you believed and knew the things Jesus did? Right? Then the question is, well, what did he know and what did he believe? Well, he knew that there was life after life. He knew that there was power available to be a good person. He understood reality more than we understand reality. And if you can take on those beliefs, that worldview, would your life be better? And I would argue, yes, it would. So there's evangelistic power. I'd want people to know how smart Jesus is, how wise he is, but that he's also the Son of God.
Yeah, well, you've certainly given a lot of information about the resurrection and how it not only brings us redemption and hope and strength and comfort, but also power to be transformed.
Yeah, power to forgive others. But I mean, so many things we could talk about with that.
Well, thank you so much for that, George. Plenty to unpack still on this topic. If you would like to hear more from George, visit reasons.org and search for George Haraksin.